You are now entering the MxU podcast. No credentials required.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 164 of the MxU podcast. I'm Jeff Sandstrom, and I'm here, as always, with my good buddy, the master of ceremonies, Dadu Worldwide himself, Jay Desai. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm doing good. I'll be honest with you. I have not been on tour for a few weeks, and today I'm back on day one. And I just got back from London, and I had nowhere to do this podcast, so I stole Pat Barrett's dressing room. So if Pat barges in, I apologize for anything you may hear, see, or experience.
Well, if he barges in, we'll have, a fun time, I'm sure. So,
Yeah, that I can guarantee.
One thing about day one of the tour, it's like, in a way, it's like refreshing and exciting. And then in another way, it's like, how does this go again? Like, what are we doing? Especially having been overseas, I'm sure you're a little bit fried right now.
Yeah, my family goes pretty hard. And so we had a wedding.
I saw a video of your mom leading the charge with the dancing. I mean,
yeah, she was having a dance off with someone. I just looked out on the dance floor. The dancing had just started. She'd already challenged someone to a duel. So
I want to go to an Indian wedding so bad. I need you to take me.
I mean, seriously, I take friends from time to time, and I have so many photos of friends like sleeping on day two. Like, how do y'all do this? It's wild.
So it's a multi-day affair, right?
Yeah, there's generally something going on. Some things are joint between the two families. Some things are just one of the families. But there's always good food, good drink, and good dancing. Always.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And good outfits. You need to explain to me the neighbor jacket, the headdress, talk to me about the traditional garb that you were.
Well, I was wearing the traditional garb. Yeah. You're wearing like these little linen feeling like skinny pants, a bunch up at your ankles, which is fine. And then you kind of have like a cloak over you. And then on top of that, you wear like a Nehru jacket, which is really just like a vest.
Yeah.
With no collar, and then my cousin had married a Punjabi man, and they're a traditional headdress. And so we had both sides of the family had worn the headdress. So the groom's side traditionally would have worn them anyway. And so she just asked all us cousins if we would wear one. And we were like, yeah, great. And
That's
so
awesome.
we had to hire people to come put them on our heads, though. None of us know how to do it. So it was like an assembly line of head wraps.
It's way more than just tying a tie.
Well, what's crazy is it's a pretty long, it felt like about an 8-foot piece of fabric. And these brothers just knew how to tie it on. There's nothing holding it on. It was
just tied
wrapped
into itself.
Yeah, and I mean they nailed it. I looked like the Sultan from Aladdin.
You looked really good. I saw the story that you posted with your eyes kind of like, wide open.
I mean, it was some real like Aladdin feeling stuff. So
I think you did look like the Sultan from Aladdin.
Yeah, our dear friend Eddie from Concept Pixels actually sent me a side-by-side. I'm sending it to you right now.
Hold it up to the camera so we can all see it.
Oh, yeah, here we go. I don't know the camera.
Oh yeah.
Gosh. There you go.
That's amazing. I think he nailed it.
Oh, you nailed it. And then he asked to come to a wedding too, so.
That's awesome. So you're with the Phil Wickham crew again. So anything new with the tour? Anything? Is it same?
No, we're out on the West Coast. So I'm in Tucson today, and we're going to go Bakersfield, Phoenix. That was routing that I didn't choose, and then to Albuquerque.
From Tucson to Bakersfield to Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah. So someone got a little drunk and played darts, I think.
Well, it's another person from tour management who's never actually been on a tour.
Right.
I mean,
100%.
when this kind of stuff happens, it's like they're trying to satisfy some radius clause or something? I don't understand.
I guess. I don't know how that works, but no, it's good. Honestly, it's a few weeks off. We got 3 weekends left. So it's week on, week off, week on, week on, week off. Next week, I head to Nashville for the whole week. When's this episode airing? Monday?
It'll be out next week, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So when you're listening to this, if you're bored and in Nashville, Johnny Swim is in Nashville all week. They have 3 shows. They have a show at the Bluebird Cafe, songwriter style. and they're doing a trio show at 3rd and Lindsley after that, and then they're doing a 10-year celebration of their Diamonds album at the Ryman, and there's a bunch of
Oh
other
man,
events planned around it. It's a great. Me and brother Gene will be there. Great shout
nice.
out to our friend Alan from DPA
Yep,
and Stephen Aruda. They have gotten us some gear that we needed to do the show, and there's some real fun moments planned.
that's
So
awesome. Well, DPA and MikeRentals.com for the win. I love it.
yeah, it's great. So that's super fun.
Man, I wish I was available. I would come out because that that show at the Ryman sounds like it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and guys, the Ryman's stacked with great gear. But let me tell you, we'll get Gene on this and debrief our 3-show endeavor. I'm gonna end up mixing monitors on an LV1, and Gene's
Excellent.
gonna have his DM Mini, the small one. And I think
Wow.
we're gonna just tie into house gear every day because we're doing rehearsals with
So you're
those.
just carrying it like carry-ons.
Yeah, literally, it's the midget console tour. I don't think you can say midget in 2024.
Now, how many inputs are on the DM?
We can both do, I think, 64.
That's awesome.
I think so. Hey, Gene, are you wearing a radio? He never wears a radio. Is anyone near Gene?
He's probably making coffee somewhere.
Yeah, no Gene. Literally, he doesn't like wearing a radio.
I don't either. When I'm on tour, I'm like, once stuff is in and I'm like at the console, whether I'm tweaking a show file or getting ready for sound check or whatever, my radio is probably not on my person.
Yeah, no, Gene's is never on his body. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's good.
Well, what else do we need to talk about? What else is going on for the good people that they need to know?
Oh, there was something I was thinking about the other day. Oh, didn't NAB just happen? Any big
NAB was
reveals?
this past week. Yep. I wasn't there this year, so
Me either.
I don't have a pulse on what the big reveals were. I know that NAB is usually full of a bunch of good stuff. I know that a lot of people were there that we need to be talking to. So we'll find out and we'll get them on the podcast. I did see though that there's a new Waves and Digico integration. It's like a major upgrade to integrating Waves with Digico consoles. So I'm curious to get my hands on that and see what that's all
Oh, that's right.
about.
I did see that. I did see Digico also release some quantum updates for like the 338
Yep.
or something, and I don't think they're crazy expensive.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so the Digico Waves integration I'm curious about. There's also been a lot of buzz lately around remote mixing. And I think that's going to continue to be a thing. Like I've seen a couple of posts on the MxU Tribe Slack and a couple of things out there in the wild of people, taking on broadcast mixing duties from a remote location. So I'm real curious to see how that's going to pan out because, I know Aaron Padilla has a setup to be able to do that. And, I know churches are
Yeah, totally.
kind of going outside of their own volunteer pool to kind of pull some of that off. So I want to talk to somebody about that sometime soon too.
What have you got coming up that you're mixing?
Well, I'm going to be at a big conference in Atlanta next week. And then after that, we're continuing to film content for the MxU platform. And actually, our buddy Marcus Bowling from our team, he and his wife are having their second baby here in about a week.
Awesome.
So we're trying to cram a bunch of stuff in before his world gets taken up by a newborn. So he's been editing like mad. And I know that we're going to have a bunch of new content coming to the platform that's really, really great. I'm really excited about it and proud of him and the rest of the team for what we've got coming down the pipeline. I think it's going to be great.
That's awesome. I was thinking about the MxU Lives the other day and how a few people have slid into my DMs about how helpful some of the content's been. So I know we got a few coming up.
Yeah.
We have one next week
Yep.
Or
So
2 weeks,
our
sorry.
no, it's next week. I mean, by the time this episode's out, it'll be next week. It is in DC, the Washington, DC area. It's actually in DC at National Community Church, but it is Tuesday, April 30th. So if you're hearing this next week, whenever it's released, and you're in the mid-Atlantic region of the US, you got to come. I'm telling you, go to getmxu.com and get a ticket because you're not going to want to miss what's happening. I think it's a super helpful day. It's a great way to network and connect with people from other churches. It's a great way to hear from some of our partners and industry leaders in terms of what they have to bring to the table, just for encouragement and training and just personal development. I think is another thing that we're finding is really needed and what's coming out of these days. So yeah, the 30th of April is our next one, and then the one after that is going to be in Columbus on June 11th. It's a Tuesday as well. So if you can't make it to DC
On
a Tuesday, it's going to be in Columbus, Ohio, on June 11th. And then we take a break for July. And then August, we're going to be in Dallas. And then September, we'll be in Fort Lauderdale. And October, we'll be in Seattle. So we have 5 more coming up. And I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. We can't wait to see you there. It's a really good way to spend the day. And it's a compact, there's a lot going on during the day, but it's a pretty compact day. So it's basically, get there at 9 and we're going to have you home after dinner, and after a big hangout event, we'll have you out of there and home by 7. So it's like still get home in time to put the kids to bed, but meet a lot of good people along the way. So
That's
Jay,
amazing.
I know you're not going to be at the next one because of the swim team, but I'm hoping that you're going to be at all the other ones.
Bro, I think June 11th, I'm there. It's on my calendar. So
awesome.
Yeah. If it's on my calendar, it's law.
That's right.
Well,
cool. Well, our interview today is actually pretty great. Robb Blumenreder from Sennheiser and I
say
sat
that
down a
last
little
name
while
again.
ago. Blumenreder.
Blumenreder.
Yep.
Blumenreder.
Blumenreder.
Gosh.
Nice long name. Anyway, we sat down a couple weeks ago and just chatted about Sennheiser, his history with them, and what they bring to the table in terms of their products and capabilities. So I know you're going to like it. Let's get to that. Well, I'm excited today to be joined by Robb Blumenreder from Sennheiser. Robb is on the team that oversees customer and market insights. So as he's going to provide some insight into what Sennheiser has to offer, from their perspective, I hope that our listeners will be able to gain insight into maybe some solutions that Sennheiser has for them. So Robb, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thanks for inviting Sennheiser.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So why don't we start with just a little bit of background? Why don't you tell everybody kind of how you got into all this and your experience in the industry and kind of how you got to your role at Sennheiser today?
Sure. It's an interesting long story, but I'll try to give you the short version. And if I can give anybody who's listening that's maybe in their late teens, early 20s advice, I talked to a lot of people. I was always happy to share with people what I was doing, what I wanted to do. And by sheer chance, as I was working as a audio engineer at UConn, there was a woman that swore she has to go backstage. She has to go backstage and she has to give this microphone to somebody. And as chance would have it, I ended up escorting her backstage and talking to her because I talk a lot. And she was the human resources director for Sennheiser. So,
nice.
I was working in the audio field at the time. I was a stagehand. I was working at the UConn Theater. So I was really into audio at that point, and a lot of right place, right time. And then just having that resume ready to go. And as we always say at Sennheiser, like, say yes and figure it out, so
that's awesome.
Said yes.
So you're from Connecticut and you
yes.
You live in Connecticut now. Were you a student at UConn at the time, or was this after school?
Yeah, this was actually my senior year of college. I was finishing up my last semester, and I ended up going down to interview for Sennheiser, which is in Old Lyme, Connecticut, and basically started as an intern in the last 2-3 months of my college career.
Wow.
And they said, if you graduate, you've got a job.
That's amazing. I tell people all the time, it's like, if you're a young person who wants to get into the industry, just having, like you said, being able to talk to people, being open and willing to kind of explore opportunities. If you're a hard worker, if you're diligent, it's like, we'll teach you what you need to know. You don't have to
That's
know
right.
everything. You just have to be willing and open to be available. And I think that's such a great lesson and a great piece of advice. That's cool. So you went from intern at Sennheiser as a 22-year-old kid
Yeah,
to
22.
what? Yeah.
So it was actually really interesting for me at the time because I became the product manager for a French mixing console company.
Okay.
And there was a brand way back when that made the first dedicated live sound mixing console. And it wasn't Yamaha, it wasn't Digico, it was a company named Novason. And they
Yeah,
were based out of this
Novason
little
was
village in France.
a big deal back then because it was literally built for live events and live production. There were so many great studio consoles at the time, and people had taken a bunch of those and modified them to be usable in a live context. But Novason was like, okay, we're going to focus on concerts and live events.
Yep. And it wasn't without its faults. When you're on the bleeding edge, sometimes it hurts. And
Yeah.
but as a 22-year-old coming into the industry, that really exposed me to meeting a lot of great people, getting to be behind the scenes at a lot of different facilities. And in fact, some of my best memories of managing that brand for the U.S. Was going around and really kind of seeing a totally different world that I wasn't used to. The house of worship world. I grew up in Connecticut, so I grew up going to a Roman Catholic church, which is not like a church in Texas.
No, it's not the buckle of the Bible belt, modern worship,
Right.
non-denominational experience. No, not at all.
Right. So that was, so that was really my foray into not only Sennheiser as a brand, but really getting exposed to a lot of different environments, different application use cases. And as you said, the best piece of advice to give anybody is, if you're interested, just talk to somebody. This is a liberal arts field.
Yeah.
If you've got enough ingenuity to want to learn, or if you have enough intuition to want to learn, people will teach you. And,
you don't have to be an electrical engineer to get into this
right.
business. It's, nobody's asking you to understand all the capacitance and resistance to build a channel strip in a console. It's like, there's plenty of ways to get into the industry. So we're with the French console, were you able to get that into many houses of worship, or like, what was the scene at the time as far as house of worship space goes?
So that was at that time, Yamaha was really the primary competitor, right?
Yeah,
and Yamaha. It's always interesting. There's a funny Onion article that says that Yamaha were proud of one thing: making jet skis and saxophones and keyboards and PA systems, and that's kind of that's the thing. When you have a small French company going against a relatively large multinational conglomerate, it gets a little rough. But the main competitor at the time, I think, was PM1D. That was right around the time when PM1D and PM5D was out. But that also exposed me to a lot on the Sennheiser side, because all of those live sound applications, obviously, you're learning all about in-ears, and you're learning about wireless systems, because no one's buying $100,000 console and just having fixed microphone positions.
Right.
So
it
that
doesn't
opened up
exist
that
in a
door.
vacuum, especially for live sound. You've got to have all the pieces to make it completely portable and completely adaptable. And, it's not a set and forget kind of situation. You're always changing out mics and changing mic placement and positions and setting up and tearing down every day. So you've got to have products that are durable and flexible and roadworthy. So I'm sure you saw a lot of different products at that time.
And it ranged really. I went from everything from broadcast to live sound and production facilities and houses of worship. So you really got to see a lot of different applications.
Yeah, that's cool. So how'd you move from Innovason to Sennheiser?
So another wonderful thing is you want to work for a great company, and Sennheiser, being a family-owned third-generation company, they act like that. So when I got hired, I had a boss that cared about me and my personal development and exposing me to new things. He often made the joke that I ate chicken wings and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So when I came and started, not only did I learn about the industry and the people in it, but I kind of grew up at Sennheiser,
Yeah.
and that's another piece of advice. It's not very common for people to stick with one company anymore. But if you find a good company, and more importantly, if you find a great manager, you can learn a lot from them. And I was very fortunate to have people at Sennheiser that cared about me, cared about my well-being and my development, and they gave me opportunities. So I moved from that position to a product manager for music industry products, and that was all of Sennheiser's items, and then moved on to industry team manager and a channel manager, and then regional Americas sales manager, business analyst. I've kind of done a lot of different things, worn a lot of different hats.
That's great. And you've been there for 20 years now. Is that right?
Yep. That's I celebrate 20 years. In fact, I've got it's right over there, my 20-year plaque.
Oh yeah, I see the plaque. That's good.
Daniel Sennheiser was here last summer for our get together. Got to shake his hand and say hi. And it's also nice,
That's
again,
awesome.
Family company. When the owner knows your name and shakes your hand and says, "How's it going, Rob? How's your dog? How's how's life?" It's a good
That's
thing.
very cool. So how many people are at the mothership in terms of just like local employees?
So Sennheiser has a variety of legal entities around the world. I think we're in the range of 2,000 employees.
Okay.
In the Americas, we're probably 160, 170. About 50% of our workforce is in Germany. And of course, we have our own production facilities. So a huge portion of that is our production team.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the German and Austrian tradition of microphone technology is, well established, obviously. Companies like Sennheiser and AKG and Neumann, it's like, the Europeans know how to make microphones. And, a lot of that was birthed out of military technology. And, whether it was, the first kind of radio mics and wireless systems because of transmission needs for military purposes, or just microphones in general, there's a long history of excellent quality. And a lot of people are familiar with a lot of the products. Honestly, our customers and our listeners, they're probably either Shure based or Sennheiser based in their applications. And so for the people who are less familiar with the actual Sennheiser products, I mean, you guys have such a wide range. A lot of people are familiar with, drum mic applications or a vocal mic, or, I've worked with artists that have the top of the line 6000 series wireless with the microphone that has the switch that you can toggle between, being in the PA and being in a monitor mix. I mean, it's an incredible lineup. So, let's talk about a few things that maybe set Sennheiser apart in your mind.
Sure.
Obviously, build quality is one thing, but what are the aspects of the microphones and the systems that you would say, man, this is why I love Sennheiser?
One of the really interesting things about our company is that for a long time, the series of products that we had were when you bought Evolution Wireless, it was cross compatible up and down, and that was different. That wasn't something that you saw with some of the competitors. So you could have an experience using our let's say our more budget friendly entry level 100 series product,
Mm-hmm.
and then go to a 500 series product, which might be double the price, or move upstream to our 6000 series or EWD or EWDX, and you're going to get a similar experience with the same capsules as you move up the line. So I like to say that once you start on Sennheiser, it's very easy to have a starting point and then bring that along with your career and really have something that's consistent that you know how to use. That's a very familiar ground. You don't really have to learn new things all over again. It changes a little bit now that we're in the digital world.
Sure.
We're moving off analog and into digital, but
Yeah.
that's always been something that I think a lot of users appreciated was, Evolution Wireless came out in 1999, and fundamentally, if you gave somebody from 1999 a system from today, they could probably figure out how to use it, even though there's a lot more technology in it.
Right. I remember the first Evolution Wireless I used was around that time. There was a set of 4 EW100s that were part of a youth camp, and they were the band's in-ears, and the navigation on the front panel with the buttons and the scroll wheel and the stuff to get around the unit, and in the microphone as well, gain changes or sensitivity changes, whatever. That hasn't really changed. Like you say, you can walk up to a wireless system now and be pretty familiar with how it's going to operate because of that kind of continuity and through line that has been historically consistent, which is very cool.
Well, and that's not to say there hasn't been advantages and advancements.
Yeah.
But and actually, just thinking about that specific example, you take a digital system now. Sennheiser has a really interesting approach where we have 134 dB of dynamic range on our body pack and handheld transmitters now. So if you were to go out and get an EWD system, there is a difference. We've actually made it easier so that you don't have to go to a transmitter and adjust anything on it anymore, because we're going to transmit 134 dB of dynamic range. So
you've got plenty of headroom and plenty of
no clipping.
You don't
clipping
have to worry about clipping. Yeah.
At least no clipping at the transmitter. Of course, you've got a whole signal chain to worry about, and you can clip wherever you want down the line. But
right.
There's things that when you move into a digital world that there's UI things that become easier, but there's also a lot of gains when it comes to how does it sound, and that is one of the wonderful things. You move the FM systems have gotten much better, the RF systems rather.
Yeah. So speaking of RF, the RF spectrum and the bandwidth that we have to deal with in terms of what's been relegated for audio, professional audio, is shrinking and shrinking. It seems like every couple of years. So, how big of a struggle is that for you guys, and how have you been able to mitigate some of those challenges? Because I know, it's a big deal. Like people who've made investments over the years in certain frequency ranges, and then they get a letter saying, okay, this is no longer compatible. You've got to make a trade, or we've got to upgrade, or whatever. I mean, that's a difficult scenario for a lot of folks. So how has that been for you guys as a company?
So it's hard for it can be really hard as a company because you want to do everything you can to help out everybody that owns your product.
Yeah.
And when we went through some of these governmental changes, this isn't something that any of the wireless companies asked for. Rather, Sennheiser, sure, we didn't ask for it, but
right.
Qualcomm and they asked for it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, we had done some type of trade-in program. We did something where we're trying to help to say, look, we don't want you to throw these out and then have them end up in a landfill. We'll recycle them. We'll do the electronics recycling, send them back. We don't strip them or keep anything off it. We literally just make sure they get responsibly recycled. But then the money comes out of our pocket to give something back to you. And, it's a hard situation, not only, especially when you're talking to, maybe you've got a small church, they have 4 channels or they have 8 channels, and, 8 channels of wireless, if you say it's $500-$600 a pop, it's a lot of money to all of a sudden,
Yeah.
hey, this doesn't work. It's not going to work anymore. But as those changes happened, that also forced a lot of changes to happen in our development. So with the spectrum shrinking, we as a manufacturer need to figure out ways to be more efficient with our wireless. And the birth of digital wireless certainly helps that, where you can now have channel spacing that is equidistant. So instead of having to worry about coordinating your analog systems, you can have a digital system where you can get a lot more channels in much smaller space. So as it's shrinking, we've been doing our best to make sure that we have tools available so that everyone can still have as many carriers as they want on air. But ultimately, we're always crossing our fingers, hoping we don't hear something from the FCC saying, "Hey, by the way, we're going to shrink it down a little more."
Well, hopefully there's going to be some stability for a while. I think this last round was definitely a gut punch for some people, but hopefully we've gotten to a point where there's some stability for a while. So let's dig in a little deeper with the EWD, the other digital products that you mentioned. What I know it's a new landscape in a lot of ways, but very familiar in other ways, because obviously you get a receiver and a microphone and it just works, but it's more efficient. Like you said, you can have tighter coordination with throughout the spectrum and all that. So what are some other features and just pluses to consider a digital system rather than some of the other analog solutions?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at the Sennheiser specific portfolio, and it's a good time to mention this. Our Evolution Wireless G4 portfolio is starting to go through phase out. So we just started in December with our portable wireless, so camera wireless. That had been replaced by EWDP, which is the digital successor, and we've had EWD on the market for a couple of years now. So G4 100 will start to fade away through 2024, and we'll see additional analog wireless start to follow suit. So that's a good indication. If you were going to put together something for a campus, or you're doing something new, or if you need to expand your existing system by a couple channels, if you want to stick with analog, get to it. I guess is the advice. But for new systems, we're really excited to talk to people about digital offerings, because it's not just this is analog, digital is the future, and like, okay, I'm gonna set it up. You get so many good things with the digital systems and the digital implementation. First and foremost, and this is kind of the easiest one, is you get a sound quality difference. If you listen to analog versus digital, particularly if you're listening to it with instrument wireless, you're going to hear a very big difference. You're getting much more spectral efficiency. So if you're in an area that's a major metro market, if you're in like Sarasota or Miami, or something where you've got a lot of density around you, those little slivers of space that you have to play, if you're trying to put together a 12-channel system, that's extremely valuable, because now you can jam a lot more wireless in a much smaller space. So that helps. And then you have some elements of control as well. So not everybody likes things to be app-based, but we do have a Smart Assist app that will work with EWDX and EWD as well as EWDP. So you can more easily deploy your frequencies. You can scan things. You can get a better idea of what's happening.
It just automates the process and makes it so much easier as somebody who's trying to set up an event, from day to day, or, from venue to venue. You just makes it so much easier when you can push a button that says auto scan, and it just figures it out for you. I mean, it takes the guesswork out, and because there's nothing worse than being in a hotel ballroom or a conference center or an arena even, and somebody in the house has wireless that's operating in some room down the hall that you don't know about, and all of a sudden you get dropout or you get interference, or worse, the band's in-ears are dropping in and out and causing distractions. I mean, it's such a relief as an engineer to have those tools in place now that are so much more automated. Just takes the guesswork out of it, and it gives such peace of mind. It's great.
Yeah, and it's a wireless world.
Yeah.
We always have these discussions. If you have someone that says, "I need to know what the most reliable," I have something that it has to work, it has to work, it has to work, and working for a wireless company, they don't always like to hear me say this, but I said, well, if it has to work, copper is really a good way to make sure it has to be there.
Yeah.
But short of that, these new systems, they enable you to deploy a very reliable and consistent wireless system. So it has made things quite a bit easier.
Yeah, that's great. So when you've mentioned a couple times now how they can be deployed in a much narrower width of spectrum. So what are we talking about? Like, how close together can they be at this point with the digital stuff?
So with the digital systems, the spacing is, I believe, around 600 kilohertz. So you would get if you were in a Faraday cage in this fantasy world that doesn't actually exist, but if you were in an area where there's absolutely no other interference, theoretically, all those systems could work together, and you'd have up to 93 systems in one EWD range. Now, we don't live in that world, but that's,
of course,
that is the theoretical
cool.
idea.
That's nice. So let's move on from wireless systems and talk about capsules. Is there anything new that you guys are doing in terms of the actual microphones? A lot of people are familiar with, I don't know, name any drum mic. I mean, the 901 or, some of the, wireless capsules that have become kind of ubiquitous in the Sennheiser lineup. What's new in microphone world?
Well, I guess starting off with the money mic, which is vocal, right? So there's been, it's interesting to see that some of the most prolific vocal microphones are based off technology that has been around for decades, but that is what it is. But there are a lot of other options out there, and particularly as we mentioned earlier, those wired mics, we offer those same capsules in our wireless portfolio, and that's the same sound signature. So if you had something that you really liked, if you had a singer that really connected with a 945 capsule, we make that same capsule. You can put it on your wireless. You can buy a set without a capsule and get that independently. You can swap that capsule off to whatever you want. So on the vocal front, you basically have the 800 series from Sennheiser, which is the most common one would be the 835. And then we go up to our 900 series, which is, for lack of better terms, it's designed for larger stages. I always say if you're recording, you should be looking at 900 series, or if you have a large scale PA, you should definitely be looking at 900 series. But when it comes to microphones, you always have to just try different things to see what fits with your voice.
And is the 900 series, are those condenser mics? Are they dynamic? Like, for people who don't know, what's the difference?
So this is an area that can get a little confusing with Sennheiser. There's both dynamic and condenser mics in both the 800 and the 900 series. Yeah. So our 835, which is our most common microphone, that is a dynamic cardioid mic. That's your $99. Like, go out and grab that from your local big box store or online. The condenser in the 800 series is called the 865, and that's a supercardioid electret condenser. Really good for speech applications. So that's a common capsule that we put on our SpeechLine wireless systems. So if you have a talking head, it gives you a little bit more reach. They don't have to have the microphone jammed quite close to their mouth, and it's a nice tight pattern. 900 series, 935 is a dynamic cardioid. 945 is also a dynamic supercardioid, and then we have a 965, which has been out a while, but not a lot of people know about. If you have a someone who's got a great voice and really somebody who's got a lot of detail and nuance to their voice. The 965 is a 1-inch diaphragm condenser, and it's switchable pattern. So you have cardioid or supercardioid. You have a low frequency roll off that you can engage, and you also have a 10 dB pad. So,
Okay.
for your soloists or for somebody that's got a beautiful voice, it's a great mic. We also issue the warning. Sometimes people complain because when they're using in-ears, they hear how they actually sound. The better the better the mic you have, all of a sudden the harsher your mix is.
Maybe a little too much detail.
Yeah, a little too accurate.
Well, that's funny. I've run into that with people who've deployed a new PA. It's like, you get a PA that is now more full range and more, it'll expose the flaws of your out of tune guitar way more than your old half broken point source system did. So that's funny, but it is true of microphones too. But a 1-inch diaphragm condenser mic is, that's a large diaphragm. I mean, that's really cool. And the fact that could be, to stick it on a wireless stick and have a singer go to town, it's like that on the right singer, that could be awesome.
And that's kind of the phrase on the right singer, right? It's not for everybody. Just like the Sennheiser owns Neumann. The Neumann KK105 is not for everybody. Works great for Nora Jones, but not everybody is Nora Jones. Works great for Tom Petty. Not everybody's Tom Petty. And then I guess the only other one, sticking with vocals, because this could be interesting for houses of worship that have anything that has a thrust where you're going out in front of the PA. This has become a little more common with arena events. Everybody was always looking for the tightest possible pattern that they can get so that they can have as much gain before feedback as possible. Yep. And there's a new dynamic capsule that we came out with called the MD445. Okay. And that has kind of taken pole position as the go-to loud PA thrust performance capsule.
That's great because of the amount of rejection you can get off the back of it. So it's not, you're going to get more gain before feedback.
And we have that both wired and wireless. So if you have a singing drummer, that's also, and that's another thing where you're trying to have some good isolation from the concatenative sounds that come off a drum set, that can work as well. That's
cool, man. Lots of great options. I've used a lot of different Sennheiser products over the years, and there's something to be said for just the reliability and predictability of what you're going to be able to expect. I think there are some companies where there isn't as much consistency sometimes, especially in the lower price point models. I think there's, we've talked on this podcast before about some quality control opportunities that some manufacturers have. And I don't ever feel that with Sennheiser. I think, it's a tried and true brand that is, continuing to perform at the highest level, which is great. What else? In terms of, insights, and you're the customer and market insights guy. So what would you say to our house of worship folks in terms of just what you're up to that they might need to consider, or any trends that you're seeing, or any trends that you guys are trying to kind of develop and stay on the leading edge of, that people would be interested in?
Well, for a long time, Sennheiser has been in the IEM game. And if I could, help a front of house engineer out a little bit, I would say, if you haven't explored what IEMs can do for your team, for your worship team, we see a continual increase in wireless IEM sales, and part of that is because it's becoming much more accessible and much more easy. And the other reason is now you have digital consoles. Well, we've had digital consoles for a while, but you have digital consoles that have so many mix outputs, and it becomes really easy with apps for people to drive their own system. So you used to have, your Aviom setups or what have you, where you deploy things on stage, and now you can have different apps where people can just sign in and mix their own things. And the sooner you get to getting comfortable with in-ears, the sooner your front of house mix gets much cleaner. You don't have the wash from everything happening on stage. Your ears, you're saving your ears, your personal ears, and your playing really becomes better. I'm a mediocre bass player myself, and I'm an even worse singer than I am bass player. But when it comes to performing, having an in-ear really allows me to just hear. Am I on pitch? Am I not on pitch? And
totally.
It opens up a whole new world. So I wouldn't say that's anything new, but we are selling more and more and more and more, and they're going somewhere. So
yeah, that's good. Well, and I've always said that Sennheiser's in-ears just sound really good. I mean, I don't know how to say it other than that. It's it's a compelling case when you A/B, Sennheiser's IEMs versus other manufacturers, and there is a sound quality difference. So kudos to you guys for always doing that really well.
And this is you had made a comment about quality, and there's a saying that the best microphone is the one that you have,
right?
When you're trying to record, and that has some level of truth to it. But when it comes to buying quality gear, when you're deploying a lot of things, and the rest of your system is codependent on those things working, you really need to start thinking about that consistency, and that really does come into play. So it's not that there's a lot of manufacturers that make interesting products and cool mics, and there's a lot of people that have things that I love to try out. But if you get 2 of them or 3 of them or 4 of them, they may not sound exactly the same all the time. And Sennheiser, for better or worse, we're a German company, and we have very, very stringent quality control when it comes to what we have as acceptable yield. And when you get into our higher level products, you're talking about plus minus 1 dB, which is crazy. Like we sometimes we end up, if you end up throwing something out because it doesn't pass, or reworking it or recycling it. So and you see that also in the wireless world. You see it in IEMs, you see it in guitar systems, you see people that go on Amazon and they want to experience what it's like to play with wireless. So they'll see a $29 wireless, it's a 2.4 gigahertz thing, and then all of a sudden they don't understand their DMX lights don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Well, your DMX lights don't work anymore because your new 2.4 gigahertz wireless thing is throwing spurious RF all over the place.
Yeah.
So when it comes to you in an ecosystem, whether it's in-ears or wireless mics or your drum mics, you have to think about how all those things work together to contribute to a better.
That's great. Well, yeah, there's a big difference between your kids' karaoke set with a wireless mic that they got for Christmas versus, your go-to mic for your pastor on a Sunday morning every week at church.
Right.
So everybody knows that, but we need to remind people sometimes that, a commitment to quality comes at a price a lot of times, and that's worth considering. But the great thing is you guys have products through your entire line that, can suit most people's needs. So whether it's the budget conscious startup, portable church that set up, tear down every week, or whether it's, the mega church down the street that has, 20 mixes every week, there's something for everybody in between.
Yeah. And this is something that Sennheiser's really gotten better at this over the last like 5 to 10 years. We have really wonderful, saying entry level makes it sound like it's not good.
Yeah.
But the price point is accessible.
Budget conscious.
Budget conscious. And so if you look at Sennheiser's XS wireless system, we have XS wireless for sticks and body packs, and also in-ears. So if you're a a startup, or if you're a seed church, or just getting going, those are some great options. And then those products can also always get repurposed to other areas as the church grows, or as you do more and more and expand.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's products for every price point, products for every application, and we always want to be the best. The best at whatever price we offer the product.
That's great. Well, Robb, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. I'm really grateful for Sennheiser's partnership with MxU, as well as your commitment to, serving our customers and the MxU community to the best of your ability. I think, for people who aren't familiar with Sennheiser's products, they definitely need to check them out. And we're excited to see kind of what's next as you guys continue to innovate and continue to make products that are super helpful for our community. So thanks for being here today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, and stay tuned. We got some cool stuff coming out.
I can't wait. See ya.
Catch you soon.
Man, I remember when we were in South Africa, how much Nathan was bragging about all the Sennheiser that they've been able to use down there and how it's hitting their markets pretty strong. I've always loved that 2-channel mic system with the talkback built in.
Definitely.
I know Carrie's been using. Carrie Job's been.
Carrie's been using that for a long time. Lauren Daigle uses that. It's like, that switch. It's a huge benefit.
Yeah, for sure. I also know that like so many guys, the Hillsong guys like Brad, for years. Sennheiser ears only. They've just had this clean thing going on. I know the newest round of their in-ears are just like crushing clarity and
great
headroom. So I think that's awesome. Just diverse product line, kind of love it.
Love it.
Good folks.
Well, I hope your weekend of shows goes great this weekend, and say hey to Pat and Phil and all the crew. And man, I wish I could see it, but I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, so
that's right. That's the way it works. So love you, man. If you're listening at home, try to get to an MxU date. Check on your people. I know that it's hard to get to a date for a lot of people. So if you don't, at the core of who we are, it's about taking care of each other, getting better at our craft. And so you can do that. If you can't make it to a date, you can still do that at home. Go link arms with some people around you, learn, get better, exchange ideas, put in the time, take care of the people that are right in front of you, your family, your friends. And man, I hope everyone has a good week.
Love it. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you soon.